Hey everyone, welcome back to This Week in Privacy. This is episode 13 of our weekly series where we cover the latest updates with what we're working on within the Privacy Guides community and this week's top stories in the data privacy and cybersecurity space. I'm Jonah. I'm joined again today by our video producer Jordan, and if you don't know what our team is all about, Privacy Guides is a nonprofit which researches and shares privacy-related information, and we facilitate a community on our forum in Matrix where people can ask questions and get advice about staying private online and preserving your digital rights. Before we dive into the show, I'll give you a quick rundown of what we're going to do this episode. We start out by covering site updates, things that we're working on behind the scenes, and then we're going to discuss the top stories in data privacy and cybersecurity. We have a good lineup this week, some news about CalyxOS, some uh, new information about Google and Android, which I feel like we talk about every week. Some news about phishing attacks against Firefox add-on developers. Um, AI chips potentially being backdoored. Some news about Apple and their browser engine nonsense coming from Japan, and then more uh, bad news from the EU. I think those are our main stories, so we'll talk about all of that. Then we'll explore some trending posts on the Privacy Guides forum, and we will answer viewer questions. So if you have any questions or want to comment on anything that we talked about, definitely either send them in the YouTube chat or join our forum where we have a pinned post about this live stream, and we will be checking that post um, for any comments from you. With that out of the way, I think we can kick off with what we've been working on. And why don't we start with you, Jordan, if you can share some stuff about the videos you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week has kind of just been a continuation of what I've been working on last week, which was the browser fingerprinting video. I know it was kind of like secretive last week about like who we interviewed for it, but I'll just say it was someone from the Molvad browser team. So definitely look out for that. It's coming soon, I guess. And I think that'll be a really good video to like be able to share with people that are not super familiar with what browser fingerprinting is, so definitely look out for that. But that's basically what I've been working on this week.
Sweet. Once again, I'm excited for that, and hopefully we can watch that video soon. Behind the scenes, for the other stuff that's been going on with the team, again, we do have some team members who are out this week. So, like, M has not been posting articles lately for that reason, but hopefully she'll be back pretty soon next week, and we'll have those going off again. We're reviewing some other articles right now, so we're going to have some interesting uh, background information articles coming out on topics like differential privacy and homo. Hom- I don't even know how to say it. Homomorphic encryption, that tech that can potentially be used to run processes on encrypted data. So a few topics like that you can expect to see pretty soon. We're just getting those finished up. But yeah, otherwise it's been a bit of a slow week again, but hopefully we'll have more to share pretty soon. With that out of the way, I think we can move on to some of our news stories. Jordan, why don't you kick us off with our kind of headline story for this week?
Yeah, definitely. So let's get straight into the headline topic this week. So, as you probably may have heard, it's kind of been a trending topic this week. CalyxOS is pausing updates. And let me just quote directly from the article that Calyx put out on their website. So the title of the article is called A Letter to the CalyxOS Community. And I just will add, there was an update on August 5th, 2025. So this came out a bit before then. So this is going to include the update as well. So if you haven't seen that, let's just quickly cover that. So there was let's start with the actual section that was there first. So, dear CalyxOS community members, the last few months have been especially challenging for us as we have experienced some changes within our teams and in the Android free and open source development community. Nicholas Merrill, president and founder of the Calyx Institute, has left the organization to pursue other projects. Nick has championed privacy and data security over the last 25 years, and we thank Nick for his decades-long leadership, guidance, and contributions. Chireo Desai, I'm sorry if I butchered that. The CalyxOS tech lead has addressed his departure from the CalyxOS project and the organization in a personal note to the public. So basically, what we're seeing here is two very large, like, um, leadership people at CalyxOS leaving. So on the development side, the lead tech lead has left, and also the president of the Calyx Institute, which basically owns, like, they control CalyxOS basically. So that was quite concerning. And in the actual article, let's continue reading it because there was some extra information here that you should probably know. Um, Basically, there is a to ensure operational consistency during this transition and adhere to security best practices, our team is working to improve transparency and security through better design, communications, and infrastructure. Our ongoing priorities include upgrading the tech infrastructure supporting CalyxOS development, stabilizing update releases for our 25 plus supported devices, revising and updating our usage and development documentation, wiki, and user guides. So we will be switching to new signing keys along with the overhaul of the signing and verification process. As a result, current CalyxOS users will not be able to receive further security updates until this process is in place. So that, I think a lot of people were immediately quite concerned because they said they were switching signing keys, which I'll just throw it to Jonah here. Is that something that usually happens if someone leaves an organization?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation all around, and we don't have a lot of information that they shared with us kind of behind the scenes. I know they did post an update about the signing keys because there was a lot of speculation about that, and they do claim that nothing has been compromised or anything, and they are switching it out mainly just because those two senior leadership team members left, and they would both presumably have access to it, and I don't know if they're concerned about um, that being misused. Typically, when this stuff happens, and people leave under normal circumstances, I think you would just have them like delete the keys and make sure that it can't be leaked or anything. And so I don't know if this is a statement about potentially the trustworthiness of these individuals. I can't really speculate because they haven't shared a lot of information, but it does seem kind of strange. And ultimately, I suppose um, it is the safest move for sure. I mean, if you want to completely guarantee that people aren't going to be affected by potentially leaked keys, maybe they just don't know where on which computers those keys were stored on, personal devices, etc., and they just want a completely clean slate. Um, but either way, it's not normal because what this will mean is that current Calyx OS users are going to have to essentially reinstall the whole operating system if they release a new update in the future because the new update won't be signed with the old key, so the update would fail if you're a current Calyx user. Which is why you would typically have um, a better key handoff process to handle situations like this instead of just deleting it and starting from scratch. Um, but it's really hard to say. I've seen a lot of speculation about all of this. Um, Nick has been with Calyx. I mean, he founded it, and they've been around since the 90s, I believe. They started as an internet service provider before kind of moving into this nonprofit privacy stuff around 2010. So this is a very long time project for him, and it's strange to kind of see someone who's behind a project like this kind of depart fairly unceremoniously. It's kind of just this note and a note on the Calyx Institute page about how he left to pursue other projects and no more information. You can never really expect that sort of information. It's certainly possible. I mean, he cares about privacy a lot, and maybe he just wants to retreat from the public space a bit. And so, there's plenty of normal explanations for all of this happening, but it is definitely a little strange for for current users of any of Calyx's software products.
Yeah, so I guess like you said, like they around the signing keys, they did put out an update. So let me just quickly read that. And just to completely, um, get what the facts are here. Um, First, we want to assure you that we have no reason to believe that the security of CalyxOS and its signing keys have been compromised. As you know, we announced a recent leadership transition. When senior personnel have access to signing keys and leave a team, it is best security practice to update signing keys and conduct audits. So in accordance with that, we are using this transition period to update our security protocols, including updating the signing keys and taking other steps to further protect our users. So at least from what CalyxOS is saying, there's no concern of the signing keys being leaked. They're just taking this time to like evaluate the security of their infrastructure. This is really sad, I think, because I think, we've seen like over the last year, we've seen DivestOS or DivestOS,
Yep.
also stopped. And they were also listed on privacy guides. And um, CalyxOS was listed originally, but they got removed. But still, there's probably a lot of people in our community that are using CalyxOS. And I think it's always better to have more options than less. And seeing as like they're pausing it for the time being, it's not really an option that a lot of people are able to use anymore, at least until they get their infrastructure back up. So this is really sad, and obviously everyone here at Privacy Guides, we wish them the best with getting things sorted out, and we hope that they can get back on their feet, but it's definitely a tricky time for them.
Yeah, it's strange. And exactly like you said, I agree. It's good to have competition in this space. Um, we haven't recommended CalyxOS for a few years now because they had kind of a rocky history with their security updates for some of their products. It was just harder to recommend when there were other projects that were pretty consistently staying on top of that sort of thing. But overall, CalyxOS was doing some good and novel work in some spaces on Android, and their projects were used by other uh, ROMs as well. So it's kind of a shame to see all of that stop for sure because even if they weren't like the top choice, it was always good to have it as an option. And I think any competition in any market pushes the whole thing forward for everyone because CalyxOS developed some things that people expected from ROMs. Um, I do. Well, we can get back to that later. I think that yeah. So bottom line, if you're using CalyxOS right now, definitely switch to a different ROM uh, because you're no longer getting security updates, which is um, not great, especially in the present day right now with everything going on in the world. So definitely move to something else, and otherwise we'll just kind of have to stay on top of this stuff and see what happens because we're working with not a ton of information right now.
Right, and also just like for anyone who might be watching that is using CalyxOS, they did say that they put out like a uh, guide on how to backup and restore your device using Seed Vault, and how to restore your device. So if you are using CalyxOS for whatever reason, they do have a guide on how to like get yourself back up to either switching to stock, another custom operating system, or restoring your data on um, and making sure you don't lose anything if you do decide to swap off it, which, as Jonah said, you should probably do that because you're not getting security updates for the next couple of months at least. So, um, yeah. There's also there was also one quick little update. They said they were going to remove the images from their website, but they decided to go back on that. So it is available again. Obviously, like we said, you shouldn't install it because they're not updating it. So yeah, kind of a sad story, but yeah.
Well, let's move on to some other Android news, I think. Bit of a better story. This comes from The Verge, which reports that Google has just 2 weeks to begin cracking open Android, it admits in emergency filing. Google is asking the court for an emergency stay following Epic's big win. So this article starts out yesterday when Epic won its Google antitrust lawsuit for a second time. It wasn't quite clear how soon Google would need to start dismantling its affirmed illegal monopoly. Today, Google admitted the answer was 14 days. Google had just 14 days to enact major changes to its Google Play App Store and the way it does business with phone makers, cellular carriers, and app developers, unless it won an emergency stay from the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals as it continues to appeal. So that's what Google's working on now. It's an interesting story because I don't know why this information wasn't like public in in the courts. Why are we waiting for Google to tell us what the courts told them to do? I don't know. But that is a short amount of time, and if they don't win that appeal, um, oh, sorry. I see they posted an update, so I should probably do that. It says, as of Friday afternoon, this may take even longer because hours after we published this story, Google won its emergency stay and now has at least 3 weeks before it has to change Android App Store policy. So there was an update to that story already, I guess. It looks like they have a bit more time, but it's still not a ton of time for them to kind of make all these changes. And it doesn't incorporate all of Epic's wins against Google in their lawsuit. So they don't, they're not being forced to carry rival app stores within the Play Store, for example. And they don't have to share the full app catalog of the Play Store with those rival stores, which is um, what Epic was hoping for. So we're not going to see like the Epic Game Store or the Xbox Store inside Google Play quite yet, but we will see it when this goes through. Apps are no longer going to be forced to use Google Play's billing system. They're not going to be locked down to that billing ecosystem. Users can be steered to other platforms. This is all sort of stuff that we have also seen on the Apple side of things. Uh, a lot of their changes in Apple land have kind of been region locked for the most part. So like in the EU, you can have alternate app stores, but not in the US. And it doesn't seem like that'll be the case. I don't know what Google's remedy is. It sounds like they have to work on this really quickly, so we'll see what they come up with. Um, but I think it's a good thing overall because the Google Play system is definitely a major part of what keeps people locked to stock Android in that ecosystem instead of exploring things like custom ROMs or other Android-based operating systems that might be more private or secure because so many apps really deeply integrate with Google Play. And I think we talked about it either last week or 2 weeks ago. We talked about stuff like apps in the EU that integrate with Google Play for verifying devices instead of using standard Android APIs. And so it's that kind of thing that we definitely want to see less of, especially from like open source apps that should know better in theory. Because it's a bad situation that Google has created in the Android ecosystem. And we've talked about this before as well, where they basically tie a lot of core system functionality to their proprietary services instead of open sourcing it. So overall, it's a big win for Epic, and hopefully we'll see some cool changes with what Google does, but I'm not sure exactly what that's going to look like yet.
Yeah, and especially I think it's kind of concerning, like a lot of these like court cases, it feels like this has been literally going on for like 10 years at this point. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know, it feels like it's been going on for a long time. But there hasn't really been that much movement, at least on Google's side. Because like I know now we're seeing like Apple is actually making some moves in the EU, like they're actually like enabling third-party app stores and a lot of stuff like that. Whereas Google seems to be a lot more stubborn with this stuff. Like they don't really seem to want to buckle and allow people to like use their own billing systems and um, like you said, like they have these proprietary like integrations. I know one that people are really mad about is like the Google Play, like it's like the app that banking apps use it to like certify if your device is official. I can't remember what it's called, but that's like one of those issues where like it's tied to Google and it's a bit of a problem because it locks out people from using that app on non-Google verified operating systems, which it's kind of bad. But yeah, I hope we see like this actually pan out in a way that, it helps users to be able to make better choices for themselves because yeah, it's not great to have Google just controlling basically everything on the Android side of things.
Yeah, that API is called the Play Integrity API. It used to be called Safety Net. Um, and yeah, it's been kind of a hindrance to anyone who like wants to take control of their phone and use ROMs for quite some time now. It's been around a while, and it's um not great. It is interesting because like these court cases, they've taken a while longer to reach decisions about Google compared to Apple too, and I don't know why that is. I think that this ruling uh was only like official towards the end of last year for Google, whereas Epic won some court cases against Apple quite a bit before that. So I don't know what the difference there was or why it's taking so long when Google and Apple are pretty much doing the exact same thing on both of their platforms right now. Um, but at least it's happening. It does feel like it's been a really long time. I don't even remember how long it was since the first lawsuit. I believe it all started around like 2020. So not quite 10 years, but still quite a while to see how this resolves. So it's good that we're finally making progress and we're actually seeing changes. And I think later on in this episode, we're going to talk about some sort of related monopoly ecosystem shenanigans on Apple's side as well. So we can get into some of that a bit more later.
Yeah, I think also like it could just be that Google has been a bit more lenient. Like if you remember, like Google like has allowed you to install your own apps and stuff. Whereas Apple has just like been flat out like, no, you can't. We're not going to allow you. So, I mean, I feel like there's like a much easier case to make against Apple than there is Google. But yeah, like we're seeing, there's still like some pain points in Google's way of doing things. So, I mean, let's hope that it means we have more of an open ecosystem on Android. That would be great. But with that being said, let's move into the next story, which is from G-Hacks, and it's written by Ashwin, and it is Mozilla warns about phishing campaign that targets Firefox add-on developers. Mozilla has warned developers that a phishing campaign is targeting the AMO, which is the Mozilla add-on store, and the browser maker has warned Firefox add-on developers to exercise caution when receiving emails that claim to be from Mozilla. So basically what you need to publish like add-ons on the Mozilla add-on store as an account. And basically what's been happening is people have been receiving like phishing emails claiming to be Mozilla. And that's led to some people getting their accounts compromised. And when it comes to extensions, like we've talked about this before, but they do have quite a lot of like permission within your browser, especially if you're using like an MV2, Manifest V2 like extension. It has quite a lot of privilege in your browser. So, you know, you can imagine if someone was able to compromise one of these developers' accounts, then you're going to be kind of screwed. Like your entire browser is going to be compromised. So that's basically what this story is about. Like um, people have been receiving phishing emails that claim to be from Mozilla, asking people to update their account. And yeah, that's not actually from Mozilla. So it says you should enable 2FA on your Firefox account if you haven't done so already. And yeah, that's kind of a short article, I guess. But if you're a developer on the Firefox add-on store, definitely like make sure you lock down your account because you can put a lot of people in danger if you accidentally get compromised.
Yeah, keep an eye out for that. I'm interested in knowing how they obtained like the emails of these add-on developers. I know Firefox, I think Google, the Chrome web store does the same thing, but I know you can like publish a support email that's public on your add-on page, and maybe they're just using that and scraping it. I would assume there wasn't like a data breach or anything, or otherwise they would have a bigger story about this. But yeah, these targeted attacks are they're something to watch out for because you kind of expect to get like random generic emails at this point in terms of spam, but when they are emails that are like perfectly crafted to what you're doing, um, they can be more convincing and they do get people pretty often. So you do have to keep an eye out. I know I don't think that we have it on our list of news this week, unfortunately, but I just saw a short story about Google in the past few days having some of their systems compromised by like a team of uh, people who are phishing by calling up companies and just asking for access to the database and seeing if they get it. And this is actually a team of people that Google themselves, their security team, had kind of warned the public about a few months ago, and then it turned out they got by them themselves. So even not everyone is you're not immune, no matter how on top of security you are. A lot of people do get impacted by this stuff. So yeah, it's dangerous, and if you develop add-ons, just keep an eye out.
Yeah, kind of a short story, but yeah, um, definitely look out for it.
Alright, well, we can move on to our next story then. This is from Bloomberg. They're reporting that the US explores location trackers for AI chips. Um, so essentially the gist of this story, um, which I can't read because now Bloomberg has decided to paywall it, but I still know the summary anyways. Uh, the US wants to kind of enhance chips from people like NVIDIA uh, to have location tracking to kind of monitor the movements of semiconductors, especially regarding exports to China. I saw a related story about this. From Ars Technica. Maybe I should try to find it quick, but it was related to this about NVIDIA being kind of summoned to appear in front of China uh, over security concerns that they had about the US potentially adding backdoors to their chips. And NVIDIA is kind of denying this right now, but this is an idea that's been floating around in the US government for quite some time. They want to. Um, Add basically a location tracking backdoor to GPUs, which is kind of crazy. I don't know where they're going with this. It seems like, I mean, everyone in the tech space is against this, including NVIDIA. So I don't think it's really going to go anywhere. But the concept of it is just absurd to me.
I mean, yeah, it's like this is kind of giving me like politicians try to get involved in tech moment. Like it's just they don't really know what they're talking about. Like they're a bit like I don't see exactly how that would even be possible to add like a location tracking chip to a GPU. I'm not really sure like how that would work. So I don't know. I'm just kind of confused, I guess, by this story. I'm not
Yeah.
entirely sure why that's such a big thing.
The related story I saw from Ars Technica, the headline was NVIDIA warns of disaster if it has to put kill chips and backdoor in chips. So basically, the gist of that story was that they are denying the accusation of a kill switch or a backdoor in their chips that China has accused them of, like I said. But NVIDIA their statement is they're worried that the US is going to require one. And I think that's just a statement of kind of how American hardware companies and their exports can have a huge impact on the rest of the world and the ecosystem because if NVIDIA is kind of forced to do this, that'll be a global thing that the US is mandating of them. Definitely something to be concerned about when it comes to US hardware companies. Luckily, again, nothing has really happened yet. NVIDIA has said that they are not going to do it. Their chief security officer said um, in a blog post on NVIDIA's site, which is simply titled "No Backdoors, No Kill Switches, No Spyware," that they will not do that, and you can't build trustworthy computing systems like you would need from a CPU or a GPU with a backdoor,
Hmm.
which is, of course, true, and no argument there. And we know that from history that like these kind of backdoor chips simply are not a good idea and they cause security problems. We actually have a video about this that you made about like the Clipper chip and the NSA trying to do that with phone systems back in the day. So this kind of idea has been like the US has been behind a lot of this for a very long time and it's never worked out. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like just trying to understand this better, is this like so that like the US can stop like chips being sent to China and to like remotely disable them? Is that the idea with behind this whole thing?
I believe that's kind of the gist of what the US wants right now. I And I don't know enough about AI stuff to know for sure, but I believe the last thing I heard is that China's officially not allowed to buy chips from Nvidia, but what they do, um, kind of on the back end is they end up buying a lot of Nvidia chips from middlemen in countries like Singapore, uh, who can buy those chips and then resell them to the Chinese government and Chinese businesses. So I think that's the issue that they're trying to tackle right now, um, if I remember correctly.
Right, yeah. Sorry, I'm not like super into like the whole AI like hardware like thing. Like I don't know. Yeah, thanks for explaining. I guess unless you have anything else to add on that one, I guess we can move into the next one that we talked a little bit already about Apple, but here's the next story here. This is from openwebadvocacy.org, and the story is Japan Apple must lift browser engine ban by December. So basically, if you don't remember, I believe a couple of months ago, there was like a act in Japan called the Smartphone Act that was passed. And one of its most important reforms was the direct prohibition on Apple's long-standing ban on third-party browser engines on iOS. So basically, you have to allow other browser engines. If you're not aware, on iOS and iPadOS, you can only use a WebKit engine, Apple's proprietary WebKit engine, and um, that's kind of a problem because it doesn't allow like extra competition. Like there's still Chrome and Vivaldi and Firefox on iOS, but it's still based on the WebKit engine. So it's basically just like hampering the competition there. Um, and here's the kind of extra information on this topic here. The guidelines explicitly prohibit any measures that would prevent or hinder the adoption of third-party browser engines. Actions that prevent the adoption of alternative browser engines. Such actions may include imposing unreasonable technical restrictions on individual app providers while allowing them to adopt alternative browser engines, placing excessive financial burdens on individual app providers for adopting alternative browser engines, and steering smartphone users away from using individual software that incorporates alternative browser engines. So basically, Apple is not allowed to have an outright ban on um, allowing third-party browser engines, basically by this act.
Yeah. So this act in Japan, it's somewhat similar on its face to the DMA in Europe, which also kind of requires this. But what we've seen since the DMA passed, the Digital Markets Act, is that Apple has put in place a lot of like complex technical restrictions and procedural restrictions where you have to like go through this whole process with Apple to get your browser engine approved that holds up a lot of custom browser engine development on iOS and blocks meaningful competition. And so that clause in Japan's act that you pointed out, um, hopefully will kind of prevent that from happening and make this process more open to other developers. That's kind of the idea behind it. You never know with Apple, they like to get tricky with all of these things, as we've seen in the EU with kind of region locked stuff and lots of complicated legal
Mm.
shenanigans is all I can say about like custom app stores and custom browsers and stuff. So hopefully Japan's law has a bit more teeth and they can actually prevent that sort of stuff from happening. It can be an actual completely open platform, like you were saying, where browser engine developers get access to all of the APIs that Safari and WebKit have directly without having to go through um, complicated processes. So uh, I guess it remains to be seen how Apple is actually going to uh, follow through with this, but it is going to be required of them very soon. What do we say, by December? So by the end of
Mm.
this year. So yeah, we'll wait and see. But I think it's very good news from Japan.
Yeah, I think also just like to add on to what you said, like the API access must be functionally equivalent. So like Jonah said, like the APIs have to be there. It has to be like it has to have the same amount of like integration as WebKit. So I think that's like the biggest thing like that, at least in the DMA. I'm not entirely sure like what that's looking like, but it seems like a lot of like developers of browsers, they're kind of behind on this because they've only had like what, a couple of like months, maybe like a year max to like kind of see if they can put something out. And as far as I know, like rebuilding like a whole like browser for a specific platform is kind of complex. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, in the EU, they haven't had a lot of time to kind of rework this stuff. But some of the issues that they've had in the EU are mainly like procedural issues, like I was saying that Apple has put in place. So, for example, if Chrome wanted to switch to Blink instead of WebKit in Google Chrome, they would have to uh, create an entirely new app. Basically, they can't update their existing app, so they'd have to abandon all of their current EU users and start from scratch. Um, there aren't ways for web developers to test their apps in other browser engines on iOS unless they're also in the EU, which I believe they're supposed to be able to do, but Apple has never released any sort of testing platform. I know that they have um, developer testing options for like American developers, for example, for other EU specific functionality, but that's missing. And also a lot of the stuff that we've seen in the EU with like their geo restrictions, I believe like if you travel a lot and if you leave the EU for a certain amount of time, you kind of lose access to some EU specific features on your phone, even if you are an EU resident. I don't remember exactly what the time period for that is, but like it's not great if you're in the EU and you go on vacation and then you can't use your browser anymore. So all of those things are the types of hurdles that have prevented browser developers from kind of embracing the custom engine space in the EU as much as they probably want to. Um, I think a lot of it is more in that and like Apple's restrictions than like simply not having enough time to work on it because I do know that even before all of this came out, like people like Mozilla and I'm sure Google were working on versions of their engines for iOS before even the DMA passed because they were just anticipating that it would happen. So I think there has been work behind the scenes, but they've never gotten the level of access they've been expecting. And uh, hopefully all of that is prevented in Japan. But maybe Apple will somehow figure out a way to just lock this to Japan only.
Right.
We never know with them. I think it's probably time for them to just accept that they need to open this up to the global market because it seems like a lot of countries are going to be following in the EU's footsteps. Probably not the probably not the US, knowing what I know about the US, but other countries that are big markets for Apple will be doing this. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know about you, but I'm a little not too happy with Safari. So I mean, I want to get access to that, but yeah, like you said, like it's not available outside the EU or Japan. So I wish they would open it up because that would be great for everyone. It's kind of irritating that they're like geo locking it. So
Yeah.
let's just hope that there'll be some sort of positive move. Like maybe they'll end up just thinking, oh, this is just too much of a pain to develop completely different systems for different parts of the world. Let's just put it all into one. I don't know. One can hope, I guess.
Hmm. Well, why don't we move on to some bad news from the EU, which seems like it comes up a lot lately. This is reported by Reclaim the Net. Um, on August 4th, they said the EU revives their plan to ban private messaging. Uh, their headline is the EU is inching towards the biggest peacetime surveillance experiment in its history, with plans to quietly search every private message before you hit send. Um, so this is another push for uh, basically universal client-side scanning, which we've talked about in various forms for quite a while now. Um, Even Apple, they were kind of the first to propose doing this in a widespread way, where they were going to scan people's photo libraries for possible illegal material. They of course ended up not doing that because of backlash, but similar systems continue to be introduced, and uh, it sounds like the EU in this case wants to basically force chat providers to scan messages and then forward anything they deem suspicious to law enforcement. And that would apply to even end-to-end encrypted messengers because uh, that scanning would happen on your device, not in a middleman server. So they don't technically have to break that kind of encryption. But of course, it is up just a backdoor that they are adding to your device, and so the location of the backdoor doesn't really, like, impact the the security implications of a backdoor, whether it's in the server or in a device that you own. It creates a massive security risk, that people should be concerned about. Um, so, yeah.
I
Do you
guess
have anything to
like
add about that?
yeah, I do. Like I don't know if people remember, but like the whole thing about this scanning stuff, like there was a story about a guy who, I know it's not technically related to like client-side scanning, but it's just an example of like what this sort of automated scanning can be kind of bad for. Um, there was someone who was taking pictures of their child, and those pictures got flagged by their Google account because it was uploaded to Google Photos, and their entire account was basically disabled because of like child content on their account. So I think when you see this sort of automated scanning stuff, it's like, how does this system like know what is and what isn't illicit material? So it could basically just be sending a bunch of stuff that you're sending to other people that it thinks is bad, but it's not actually bad. So I don't know, it's end-to-end encryption, but if one of the ends is compromised, then I don't know, it's a bit of, it's not really, what's the point of the encryption at that point? I mean, it doesn't really,
Yeah, it's very problematic. There's definitely like two major issues with this kind of proposal. One, like you said, these scanning processes clearly are not perfect and they can't really account for context very well, and they'll never be 100% perfect, and so you're potentially putting people at risk. In the case that you mentioned, that was a case where they were communicating some medical information with their doctor, and then Google misinterpreted this and basically went the scorched earth approach with their account, which is a problem for people who rely on Google for a lot of things in their lives. And it is that story is kind of an example of why you shouldn't rely on these non-encrypted services for all of this stuff because they kind of have a lot of power over what you can and can't do online. But false positives are certainly a concern, and it doesn't that's never really going to be solved in any of these situations completely, which makes them very hard to recommend. But the other problem with this sort of thing is that once you build these systems that can detect certain types of content, there's nothing that prevents that system from being expanded to other content that is less like objectively bad. Because we see laws in other countries that totally restrict what most people would consider to be um, very free speech. Uh, so in these like restrictive countries, who's to say that they won't expand these current client-side scanning systems uh, beyond just purely illegal material to scan for messages from like climate activists or political activists or kind of alert authorities to other things that they want to know about that your device probably shouldn't be reporting on. At the end of the day, hopefully this stuff doesn't pass and people get more upset about it because we need to kind of maintain this balance where the computer or the phone or the device that you own has to only work for you. When it's working for other people, um, that's very problematic in a lot of ways. And we need to have like a clean separation between client side stuff that works for the user and server side stuff that kind of works for whoever owns the servers. To kind of maintain this fundamental level of trust that we have generally in technology. All this will do, client-side scanning in general, is make computers completely untrustworthy, and that'll have a huge impact, because computers are a part of so many people's lives in so many, like, deeply integrated ways that can't be avoided in a lot of cases, so dangerous stuff I think they're playing within the EU, and if you are in the EU, you should be concerned about this.
Definitely, and I agree with everything you said, like, that's really, really important stuff, and, I mean, I think also this is, like, another big concern for people because, like, we're already seeing, like, a little bit with, like, Proton, they moved from Switzerland to the EU, but it looks like the EU isn't really doing too great either, so it's very concerning for a lot of these, like, privacy-related services like Signal and Proton and all these other, like, apps. If this gets passed, it's going to really fundamentally sort of destroy the aspect that people rely on, which, like you said, is like confidentiality of their messages. Is definitely don't want that to happen.
Yeah, and if you are in the EU, definitely, like, keep an eye on what your country supports. We have in our notes here that, um, to block this proposal, for member countries that total at least 35% of the EU's population have to go against it. So right now, the Netherlands, Poland, Estonia, Luxembourg, and Slovenia remain opposed to this current implementation. Germany and Belgium are undecided. And then Hungary, France, and Spain are supporting this proposal right now. And this proposal has been introduced by Denmark. So if you're in Hungary, France, Spain, Denmark, you should be very upset about what your country is trying to do to you right now. And if you're in another EU country, I think it's good to kind of make your voice heard and make sure that the people who you voted for are not supporting proposals like this. It sounds like, a lot of countries are recognizing the very legitimate and large concerns that are largely unsolvable with proposals like this, and they are against it. And then some of them are against this kind of conditionally, which I guess is good, probably the best we can get for now, but hopefully could be improved. And uh, yeah, and hopefully this doesn't go through. But I think people in the EU need to be very worried about what's going on right now because we're seeing just a lot of chat control stuff and other concerning privacy related laws attempting to be passed over there. So not good.
Yeah, it's not good stuff to see. I guess with that being said, we've kind of gotten to the end of our articles here. So I guess we can move into the Q&A section of this live stream.
Sweet. I haven't seen a lot of messages on YouTube so far, but if anyone's listening, definitely feel free to send it. We did get a couple questions on the forum. Somebody asked if we reached out to Calyx or Nick and to see if they would talk to us or maybe join us on this podcast. We did not reach out to them. I haven't been really involved. Well, I've never really been involved in their community at all. They haven't been super responsive last time we did attempt to reach out, which was probably a few years ago now. So uh, I just don't have very good contacts, and it sounds like based on the announcements that we've been seeing that Nicholas Merrill is kind of stepping away from this completely, so I'm not sure if he's open to it. If someone from Calyx does want to talk to us, we're definitely open to it though. Uh, we can try to reach out if people are interested in that. Um, but we just haven't really had an open line of communication, so we haven't reached out ourselves yet. So if you do want us to, let us know what you'd want to know, and we can try. Or if anyone from Calyx is listening and wants to, kind of share some information about what's going on with our community, definitely reach out as well, and we can try and get that out there.
Yeah. I don't have anything extra to add there, but I just did notice this question from Agab Barto on the forum, and it says we should install another custom ROM. So that's what it's looking like right now. You should probably go and check Calyx's website. They have a guide on how to back up your device. Definitely don't like flash something without backing up. Definitely just back up your stuff first. Because people have all sorts of like secrets on their phones, like 2FA authenticators and all sorts of things. So just make sure you got that backed up. But yeah, it's looking like right now you're going to have to switch if you want to continue using your phone, because 6 months, or it's realistically, it's probably not going to be 6 months, but at least a couple of months of no updates is quite concerning, especially because there is quite a lot of vulnerabilities that are patched in these security updates. And I'm not really sure what the process is, especially because I know they rely on Chromite, I believe, or Chromium, and I don't know if that's still getting updates. So that's another concern. But I would definitely just try and switch off it if you can as soon as possible.
Yeah. Sisoto92 in the YouTube chat asks, with the recent UK Safety Act, what would be better, Tor, Orbot specifically, or a VPN? Um, right now, I believe it's still the case that there are no issues in the UK for using a VPN. I know they've been floating the idea of banning that stuff, which isn't great, but a VPN should be perfectly fine for most people, and it's what we generally recommend people use. Um, Especially because, when it comes to using a VPN, we have more information about this on our website, so I would definitely check out like our VPN overview and our Tor overview. A VPN isn't going to protect you from the provider itself. It can sometimes be worse, but in the UK, I think it's very right to consider your ISP a legitimate current threat to your privacy and safety right now. And so, even though a VPN might be a theoretical concern, it is definitely outweighed by the fact that your ISP is directly working against you. So based on that calculation, I think for almost anyone in the UK, using a VPN makes a lot of sense. Tor is always a good option. It doesn't work for all apps, like video calling specifically and that sort of thing can have problems, but for just web browsing, um, it is a good option. You can use it in conjunction with a VPN if you don't want your ISP to know that you're using the Tor network. But in the UK right now, there shouldn't be any legal repercussions for just using either Tor or VPN, so they're both safe to use in this situation uh, so far for now. So I think you can use either one. Orbot definitely has the benefit of being free, um, but there are concerns when you're using Tor in terms of security, especially if you're browsing unencrypted websites. That's less common these days. Usually, HTTPS is going to protect you. But exit nodes on Tor can potentially change unencrypted requests and modify them. So any HTTP sites or potentially DNS queries can potentially be hijacked, and so you do have to look out for that. There have been a few real world attacks on Tor where that has been a problem. Where it typically wouldn't on sorry, on a trustworthy VPN like ones that we recommend. So
Yeah, and
definitely check out our VPN overview and Tor. Oh, sorry. But
sorry.
yeah. Sorry, what were you saying, Jordan?
I think yeah, I agree with what all you're saying. And also like I think it's worth this is kind of like a shameless plug for Jonah's video, but you had a really good video on whether you should use VPN with Tor, so definitely check that out if you're like thinking about that because I feel like that would be a legitimate use case for that. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. That video has some information. A lot of the information in that video was incorporated in our tour overview, so it kind of depends on whether you like to watch videos or read things. I'm a reader personally. I never watch videos, so I never think to recommend it. But I know people like it. So if you do want an overview of like how Tor works and how Tor and a VPN can protect you, I do have information about that on my channel. Which is kind of covers a lot of what is covered on the Privacy Guides website right now. So they're both very good resources for this sort of information.
Yeah, and I'm seeing another comment on the YouTube chat. No questions, just wanted to say I love these episodes. Thank you for doing this. Oh, thank you for the nice comment. Yeah. It's really good to like kind of connect with the community on these live streams. Yeah, just happy to be here.
Yeah, these episodes have been going great so far, and I'm glad we're getting a lot of support. And thank you. That is great. However, I am not seeing a lot more. I'm not seeing any more questions from people. So if anyone does have anything else they want to ask, I might give you another minute, kind of a last call. But I might start doing some of our outro stuff in the meantime.
Well, I guess just while we're waiting for
Yeah.
people to like bring any questions in, was there like any like threads on the forum that you think have been kind of interesting or that you think we could kind of get people's eyes on?
Yeah, that is a great question. We I know another thing that we've been the people have been talking about is a Crescent put out kind of a call to action about getting donations. Sort of a similar situation if you remember like how DivestOS was fundraising towards the end of their run. So I don't know what's going on with the Crescent. There's a lot of speculation. And I did hear they got a pretty large donation already in cryptocurrency. So um I think we're still waiting for more information for them on what that'll look like, but hopefully that works out for them. I'm not exactly sure what's going on their end besides just kind of a need to raise more money from the community if they want to see that app store continue to be developed. Crescent is an app store that we generally recommend people use on Android because it has some good security properties that aren't found in alternatives like F-Droid. So hopefully, they are able to continue their work, but it's kinda up in the air right now. But yeah, if you're interested in that, definitely check out the discussion on the forum about it because 'cause there's been a lot of comments on that, I know.
Yeah, that's a good point. That was a good topic that definitely people were like discussing quite a lot. I think like the main takeaway from that though was they're fundraising money to like further the development of a Crescent. So they're still going to be maintaining the app, but it's just that they wanted more funding to like have a full-time developer come on and be able to like flesh it out. And I think, you know, despite a Crescent having a small amount of apps, um I think it's good to have another option. Like we've got Obtainium, we've got F-Droid, we've got all these different like alternatives, and I think it's better to have um more options. So I mean, if you're really a fan of a Crescent and you want to see them keep building out and like developing this, then definitely consider doing a donation there or just at least checking out the blog post. Um, but yeah.
Absolutely. I see another question in our YouTube chat. Is CalyxOS more compatible than LineageOS? It and again, I would reiterate up front, you definitely should not install CalyxOS right now, no matter what. But in general, it's a lot less compatible. The benefit of CalyxOS over Lineage when it was still receiving updates was that even though it was on a more limited set of devices, it was available on more devices than just the Google Pixel, which was a plus, and it generally supported some security features like bootloader locking, which Lineage OS generally doesn't support. So a lot of people have concerns about using Lineage OS in terms of security and how it's developed. It really depends on the device you have, like what you should be using. And if you want some more advice about this, I would definitely ask on our forum and get some feedback. There aren't a ton of great options in the Android ROM space right now, unless you have like very specific hardware devices. So hopefully that changes in the future. But for right now, Yeah, it's up in the air. It's definitely not more compatible than Lineage OS though, but
Yeah,
you
it's
still
also
shouldn't use it.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. You definitely shouldn't use it. But I guess like the thing with CalyxOS is it does take a lot of code from Lineage OS. But obviously, you know, it does a lot of things on top of that, and it's definitely got a lot more features than Lineage OS has built in. But I guess in terms of options, like the one that's recommended on privacy guides, Graphene OS, so definitely check that out. I know there's some other like smaller ones, but as far as I know, like a lot of those have got like, at least within the privacy guides community, there's like a lot of discussion on their lack of focus on security. So I would definitely be a bit more cautious. But I know that for sure that Graphene OS has definitely got a good focus on security. So if that's a concern, then I would probably look at that. Um, but yeah, that's definitely don't install CalyxOS, and I would probably not do Lineage OS either. But again, it's up to you. And if you find that that's what you want to do, then that's up to you.
Yep. Another story that's been happening just within the past few days. I should have kind of announced this at the top of the episode, maybe with our privacy guides updates. But I forgot about it, but we can talk about it now. The developer of PicoCrypt, which is a encryption tool that we have recommended for a little bit now, is no longer going to be maintaining that project. They're archiving it. So it's kind of a niche tool that I expect not a ton of people were using, but it did have some use cases for some people uh, that you might be relying on. So if you are using PicoCrypt for any reason right now, you might want to look into alternatives. It's just no longer being maintained. It's a pretty simple application, not very complex. So in terms of security, there's no like major immediate security risks that you would have to know about right now, because it uses basically standard cryptographic libraries, and those shouldn't have any issues. So not an immediate concern, but because it's no longer being maintained, we'll likely be removing it from our recommendations on the website, which is part of like the privacy guides updates that we talked about earlier. So just something to be aware of for current users. I don't know too much more about it otherwise, but I do know that the developer of it is active on our forum for now, at least until they move on from this project. So if you have any questions about PicoCrypt that you want to get addressed, definitely check out the PicoCrypt thread on the forum right now for some more kind of firsthand information about all of that. I just wanted to make sure if anyone wasn't aware of that yet, that you all know about it.
Yeah, it's good to mention because yeah, like you said, it's no longer maintained. The GitHub repository has now been archived, so officially it's not receiving any more updates. But I think it's also good to mention that it did get audited and there was not really any issues. So, I mean, as it is currently, it's probably fine, but I would try and like move on to something else. I know it's kind of a pain because I know a lot of people like have their encrypted like containers set up and stuff, and it's like you have to move everything across. Um, so honestly, Veracrypt has been like really good for me. I'm not sure if it's recommended on the website, but
Yeah, it should be. In Veracrypt, either Veracrypt or Cryptomator, I think are the most obvious options to move to after this if you're a current PicoCrypt user. Cryptomator, like if you want file-based encryption, as opposed to full disk encryption like Veracrypt would provide. It people typically use it on the cloud, but it is not a cloud-specific software by any means. You can use it totally locally. It just happens to also work very well with the cloud. So if you want to use that for local encryption of your files, like you would do with PicoCrypt, um, I don't think you can really go wrong with that choice.
yeah, but definitely like look at getting your like I know the developer said like there's no like chances that the software will stop working anytime soon, but just be aware that like because it's no longer getting updates, there might be a time when like you can't actually open the application on your computer. And that's going to be a bit of a problem if you need to open one of your encrypted containers. So uh probably look at moving over to like either like what Jonah said, like Cryptomator or Veracrypt. Um, I've personally used both, but both have been fine for me, and there's not really that much difference between them all. Like they're pretty similar. They have a similar like interface and similar way of interfacing with your files. So definitely consider doing that. I know it's kind of a pain, especially if you did just switch over everything to PicoCrypt and now you're like having to transfer it back. But yeah, it's just unfortunate that this developer's decided to move on. But yeah, good luck to them in the future. I hope they work on something good.
Yeah. Well, I think as far as forum updates go, I haven't been super active this week because I've been working on a lot of stuff not on the internet. So, I don't know of any other stories off the top of my head that are coming to mind. Do you have any last things you want to mention? Because I think we are finished up with the questions here, it looks like.
No, not really. I think, yeah, just if anyone wants to like, you know, have a look around, there's definitely like more discussion happening about the open source password managers. But yeah, um, definitely weigh in if you have a thought on that because like we're trying to get like what people think about it. And it seems like the discussion has kind of been heating up again. So if you do have thoughts about that, definitely leave a comment in that thread. I know we mentioned it last week, but it's better to kind of get everyone's opinions on that because yeah, it's down to what everyone thinks.
All right. Well, we can start wrapping things up. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. If you're watching this not live after the fact, I'll just remind you that we do open these forum threads for questions early, typically around Wednesday. So if you have any questions that you want us to address next week, definitely join our forum and ask there. And then even if you watch this after the show or on PeerTube or something like that, hopefully we can get your questions answered so you don't have to tune in here live at the time if you don't want to or if you can't. Um, all of the updates from this show are shared on our forum every week, so just follow that if you want to stay tuned to this. Also on YouTube and PeerTube. Um, if you get value from the work that we do at Privacy Guides, either through this show or through the articles we publish or through the research that we put on our website or through our tool recommendations or anything else that we do, definitely consider making a donation or becoming a member because it really does help us out a lot. And we wouldn't be able to work on all of this stuff without the generous support of all of our members and donors. So, that's my plug. Thank you for watching, everyone. We will see you again next week.
Goodbye, everybody.